All right, guys, the suspense is killing me. What are we talking about here? What is tonight's topic?
Well, we're doing the S3 Magazine podcast. Welcome back to it, Mike. And today, we don't really have one topic per se. We're going to kind of talk about what we did this weekend. And by we, well, I also want to hear about what you did this weekend, Mike, because I got a little taste of it and it sounded hilarious. But we'll finish with you. We'll start with me and Ben Battles because it was, you know, it's fall, it's autumn. Everybody's trying to get their stuff in while the weather is gorgeous as it is right now here in the South. And so this past weekend, I was at Petit Le Mans and Ben Battles was at.
Chattanooga Motor Car Festival, Classic Hondas on the Dragon, and the Broad Arrow auctions.
So, where do we start, gentlemen? Should we start with.
Um, I,
We,
I say start with the petite.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. Man, all right, like I said, I didn't plan what I'm going to say, but you know how you go to an event and you get that like surge of energy after the event. It's like the Monday thing where you're like, yeah, man, that was it. And it keeps settling in how awesome it is. Like, okay, I've been going to Petit Le Mans since Petit Le Mans and started in like what 97 or 98. And yes, I've missed some throughout the year. But in 2000, I worked for Panos Racing School. So, in the early years, I was very close to it, physically speaking. It's not like they listened to a damn thing. I was an intern boy that went to college and changed brakes on the driving school cars. But anyway, I was close enough to where I started to get invested into the series. At that time, I think it was just the Petit Le Mans series. It wasn't IMSA yet, but this was when Don Panos was building his LMP car and like God, the energy was there, right? Like this guy was like doing it, like just personally funding this thing, bringing endurance racing back in America. It was awesome. It was killer. He owned Road Atlanta at the time. He owned the country club that was right up the street from it. He was like changing everything in the area, and there was a lot of energy behind it. So I got super into it. And over the years, I've fallen out, and I'll go to Petite and I'll get all excited about it, but I don't follow IMSA, throughout the year, and that annoys me because when I go to, and Mike, I know you sharing this because when we go to these events, whether it's Petite or whether it's a Trans Am race, we leave going, holy shit, this is the most badass form of motorsport. These are the cars
Mhm.
that us as kind of tuners are inspired by and aspire to. Like whether you're talking about TCR, which is kind of like the introductory races, the support races. I mean, the Hyundai N's are out there kicking ass, like with a team of car, and nobody cares. And then you go to like, sorry, I mean, I'm not trying to like downplay this racing, but what I'm saying is we should all care. The tuner nation, people that modify their cars should be going, oh my God, like
Hold on.
Hyundai is coming in much like Honda would have in the 80s, and they're like cleaning house, and like they are literally giving us everything we asked for. They're kicking ass. They've got vibrant, kick ass little cars. They got it, and we don't care. Like, as car enthusiasts, we're not supporting the brand. And then
Hold
I
on.
go and
I
I
got
watch.
really, really quickly. When you say no one cares, let's just clarify that here really quickly. It's not that no one cares. The people that actually know about it and the thousands and thousands of people that go to the races and see it for what it is and get invested in it, they really, really care because they see how amazing of a product it is and how awesome it is. The problem here is IMSA in general has zero exposure. ESPN is not out there covering it. Netflix is not doing a series on any of this stuff. It's just not getting out there to the public. Trust me, if it did, they would care. They'd be really, really into it. And especially car enthusiasts, like everybody, everything that Ben just talked about that he's going to be discussing here in a little while, if any of them showed up, they would all be into it. It's just a lack of exposure.
Yeah,
Continue.
yeah. So yeah, well, exactly. And we're speaking in generalities or whatever the hell that word is, but like it's not that nobody covers it and it's not that nobody cares. and now I'm leaving the TCR introductory race and talking about IMSA. Like, it's just that there is such an energy at this event that if it had more in-person exposure, and if the enthusiasts, the fans, you and I, were more connected to the behind the scenes, what was going on with the teams and the drivers, I think that it would be an absolute tidal wave. You know what I mean? Like, if you look, and Mike can talk about this because Mike watches ball sports. I don't know how much you do, Ben Battles. I watch it on the circus, like go Braves, but I don't know the stats, right? Um, but all the elements are there. You have manufacturers with team cars running these events, and the teams have multiple drivers. So there's a lot going on here. If you have a BMW, then BMW should be your team. You know what I mean? Like, if you have a GM product, then Cadillac or Corvette should be your teams. Like, there is such rivalry that is still alive in this racing. And, you know, when I live my daily life, I don't know how many events they do a year, but they do them all. And I pretty much don't know about any of them other than the first one, 24 Hours of Daytona, and the last one, Petit Le Mans. And what happens in the middle? I mean, I kind of do this for a living and I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, but Ben, Mike, I know you. Have you ever been to a Petit, Ben?
No, I haven't.
Okay. It's a 10-hour race. And after 10 hours, these dudes are within a second and a half of each other.
Mm.
Like, put that in perspective. The energy level is so insane. Now, I think where they have a problem, unlike a baseball game again, you can't hear the announcing unless you go out of your way to set up the satellite radio and the satellite TV and you're watching the radio, and that's the whole thing. But a lot of times in endurance racing, you watch the first 5 laps and by then they're lapping each other and you're clueless. You know what I mean? You get lost in it. But if there was a way to be able to hear what was going on, luckily I could, because luckily I had the Lexus, you know, press hospitality, whatever you want to call it. Lexus has a big tent stage building that they set up, and I was lucky enough to get a ticket to go in there. So I kind of had the TV and I was aware of what was going on. But like, dude, at the end of this race, I did a quick little video on this. I don't know if you saw it, but like, they're within like 4 seconds of each other. The Cadillac passes the Porsche, who's in the lead for the championship, passes them with one headlight, and then loses the one headlight. So has no headlight. 4 minutes left in this race. They've been going for 10 hours. Let that sink in. 10 hours of racing comes down to the last 4 minutes, and he loses his lights. Doesn't miss a beat. Just balls to the walls. Literally massive balls to the walls. Like, does not, dude, if I lost my lights in my street car at 30 miles an hour, I would completely panic. You know what I mean? And this guy is hauling ass. The Porsche is 4 seconds behind him and now starting to gain and try and capitalize on this. If he makes it a whole lap without headlights, they're gonna black flag. Like,
Yeah.
It is impossible for me to explain to you the danger of this situation because there are 4 classes in IMSA racing, and they're all different speeds. So he was in a prototype. So this is the Big Daddy car, right? So under braking, they are closing hard on the slower cars. Normally, they're flashing their lights, like, especially when it's coming down to the wire, major light flashes, GTFO, I'm coming through. This is 4 points. This is for the win, you know? And the slower cars kind of know that they're coming and getting out of the way. Because it's a situation where at the beginning, you come out of a turn, you check your mirrors, there's nobody. You go into the next turn and boom, he is on you. It's that extreme. So now he's doing this with no headlights. Like just imagine you're driving, you see nothing, and all of a sudden, you know, coming by you. And so that was the situation. Like, people were coming out of their seats like it was a college football game. The energy was like at an all-time high. And I don't know where the breakdown is. And that's what I kind of left Petit like thinking. It was just like, God, that was awesome. I mean, here it is, like 11:30 at night, and I am just completely wired up because that was so awesome. How is it that more of us are not going to this? You know what I mean? Like, dude, I mean, I just feel, I'm just speaking, out loud. Like, I feel driven. I know S3 ain't, the biggest fish in the sea by any means, but like, I feel driven to try and get people to this event. It's it's such a bigger deal, man. I think if people could start to get exposed to racing again and see that gritty, competitive. I mean, not to mention these cars, the brakes are glowing. They're lit up like they're from the future, all different colors. They're hauling ass at all different speeds. The faster cars have one headlight, like white headlights. The slower cars have yellow. They're coming down the S's, and all you see is this. And you can't tell what's where. It is the coolest thing to watch. And I just feel like if we could get people out there, more people would get inspired, more people would appreciate their, it's a circle of life, man. I just think that the disengagement, what we have right now is a problem with just numbness and disengagement overall. From the racing series, the tech has replaced the gritty danger in a lot of situations. On the street side, the physical cars with shift levers and buttons, and you know what I mean, like the cars that you feel vibrate in the seat, they're all getting replaced with, God forbid, electronic. But even if it's automatic, it's disengaging. That's the buzzword of this freaking century. Is how can we disengage people and just get them just watch it on your phone. Don't worry about it. You'll see the highlight reel on social media, and that's all you need to see. You don't actually have to get in your automatic bullshit car and drive all the way to Road Atlanta and then pay $170 for a ticket or whatever it costs. It's not that much, but it is expensive. Like, so I don't know. This is kind of, me and Mike talk about this every once in a while. And Ben, I'd like to get your, impression on it because I know you messed with the rally stuff in Chattanooga a little bit, and that was kind of the motto is like, how do we get people here? Like, there's such a carnation online on social media. How do we get more of them there?
Well, like you just said, I was actually thinking about a response to what you were saying about how to get people there and social media. It seems like everything just comes back to this one singular point, and it's just there's a couple different ways to approach it. One of the ways that a lot of competitive racing series, like even Formula Drift, you see the people that are competing in this series, they're heralded as these celebrities and heroes. And they have like this stature about them online that gives them like an internet presence, but also like a presence in person as well. They're out there signing autographs, they're out there taking pictures with people. People from all around the world know their name. Versus if you go to an IMSA race, you may only know one or two people on the class, depending on like if you follow that racing series. Like you were saying, if you have a Chevy or some GM car, you're going to follow the Corvette or the Cadillac guys or whatever. But like if you're not a part of that community and group, you're not going to know. And it's like, where do you find the convergence, or how do you create like this persona for the drivers to kind of get them that same status online? It's that's a very difficult question to answer, but I think it just comes down to online presence, social media, and it's a hard game to play.
Yeah. Mike, I know you got some wisdom on this because, like I said, Mike watches and pays attention to sports, ball sports. Ball sports does a phenomenal job at keeping people interested post game,
Yeah,
and bringing them in. You're going to say it better than me, so say it, Mike.
yeah. So ball sports. I like athletics. All right, football, baseball, basketball, whatever. But the thing that really changed the game, that's actually, excuse me while I was typing there, but that was what I was trying to find out here. What really changed the game for athletics, professional sports, was in 1979. A little company called ESPN came around. before it came around and it became the sports media company. Think about media back then. That was back in the time where the news came on at 8 o'clock, it ended at 9 o'clock. And when the news ended, your TV turned itself off. There was nothing else on after that. We didn't rely so heavily on media. And then these guys came along and said, look, not only are we going to cover sports, but we're going to do it all day long, every day. And exactly what Ben was talking about. They're taking these guys who are leaders and badasses and heroes on the racetrack, and they're making them heroes, leaders, and badasses in the real world. They're showing the rest of the world how amazing this is and how awesome these cars are and the drama behind the drivers and how beautiful these racetracks are and all the rules and all this other stuff that goes along with it. I mean, I was just looking at it just a minute ago. Wooly, I know that you hate ball sports, and I know that you don't understand it and you refuse to get behind it. The
It's
idea, oh,
not that
go ahead.
I am the casual car enthusiast, not quite race fan when it
Yeah,
comes to ball sports, athletics, whatever the hell
yeah.
you arguably like. It's not that I don't like it, it's that I don't know about it. When the Georgia Bulldogs play, I want them to win.
And
I
that's only
can't
because you,
tell you who's playing. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing with the Braves. Like I said earlier, yeah, go Braves. When I go to the game, I feel the spirit. It's
mhm.
cool. I don't come back and invest time into stats.
Yeah, and see, but that's what ESPN changed. Everybody everybody out there, no matter how much they loved baseball or football, was a casual fan before ESPN got into their TV. If you lived in New York, you were a New York Yankees fan. If you lived in Boston at that time, I think it was Boston, you were a Boston Braves fan. And it was just everything was very regional. And if you found out the Yankees were coming to town, it was a big deal. But other than that, you probably didn't know who the hell the other teams were until ESPN started coming out there and showing you highlights. And then all of a sudden you got to see who all these other amazing players, the Jackie Robinsons, the Willie Mays of the world, all these other guys. And they start really making it a big deal. And then the stats part of it is a massive deal too. The stats brings me right into something that is huge right now, fantasy sports. Now, on the surface of it, especially if you're just a casual fan, fantasy sports sounds like the dumbest, nerdiest thing in the world. And trust me, I'm right there on board with you. I just started doing fantasy football just a year ago. Before that, I was like, nerds, get out of here. It's pretty fun, all right? Now, you know what fantasy sports is. It's where you draft your players and you see if you can match them up against the other team to beat your friends so you can talk shit to each other on the little group text message chat. And a lot of people gamble for it, right? Okay. Now, sounds like a pretty dumb idea. How many people would you estimate in the U.S. do fantasy football? I want you to throw a number out there because I actually just looked this up.
200.
200.
200 what?
I don't know, dude. I
No,
don't know a
it's
soul.
it's probably like 10 million.
So the number that I found is from 2022. This is obviously 2 years later. I guarantee that number has probably jumped up quite a lot. In 2022, it was just under 30 million.
Okay. All
All right.
right.
People love statistics and heroes. You know why? Because they're both memorable.
Yeah, when you were sitting there talking, I was thinking, okay, so the answer here is humanize the sport and make the cars relatable. Humanize the
Well, hold on.
drivers.
Already relatable. You were talking about the Hyundai. Like, I feel like one confusing thing about IMSA is you have four different classes running out there at the same time. However,
Yeah.
that's also a very relatable thing
Yeah.
because you have four classes of cars out there running. There's something for everybody. That's the thing that, in my opinion, is not relatable about F1. You're like, ha, Ferrari and McLaren and Red Bull without their crazy wizardry out there. It's like, it's one of those things where it's amazing to watch, but you really kind of don't care that much unless you really care about the driver. Now, IMSA has their class that's kind of like that, with it being the prototypes, but the
Mhm.
class underneath that are very relatable.
Yeah, if you didn't know that, Ben, like you'll see cars that you recognize. I mean, there's Lamborghini out there, there's Mustangs out there, there's Lexus out there with the RCF. There are cars that are similar to street cars. And then when you mix the prototype, see, I agree. Formula One, not relatable to me because it may as well be a NASA space shuttle. It's gone that far. But the prototypes, when you mix them with the other cars, dude. I mean, they're slicing and dicing. You know what I mean? And it's impressive. It is wild to watch. I do think that the problem, and if I'm just being totally honest, like I think I could name all the drivers I know in IMSA on one hand. I
Yeah.
don't know. I love the idea of the sport, but I don't keep up. I don't invest in the drivers. And that's the difference from when I told you, like, I was in college and I was working at the track. You started to see the drivers. And the other guys that worked at the school, the instructors would be like, oh man, that guy's awesome. Let me tell you this story. And then you're like, oh, I'm becoming a fan. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that story's awesome. That guy kicks ass. Okay, he's my guy now. You know what I mean? And like, we don't have that especially in sports car racing. You mentioned drift. We have that in drift. Every drifter's got a personality. You know what I mean? Even in NASCAR, arguably the personalities have become very commercialized, but like, back in the day, they used to have personalities. When it comes to like European based sports car racing, they're very buttoned up and proper, and everything is, like, the other part of the reason I'm not into Formula One is because there's no personality there. You know what I mean? Like, where's the American? Where's the Smokey and the Bandit racing Formula One? That's what I want to see. That would bring me into the sport. So, you know, I think that's the answer. Maybe that's our task, Mike. Maybe we need to try and humanize IMSA and bring people into this. There was another story, and I won't try and go too far off topic, but I think it's worth talking about. And again, I had like a first person view of what was going on here because I was at the Lexus tent, which was right at turn 5. But when we had about, I don't know, 10 minutes to go, 12 minutes to go, Porsche was in the lead at that time. Acura, very relatable to our demographic, by the way. Acura was barreling down on him, was gaining ground, was within a second and a half. And I think it was a Lamborghini and a Mustang got together coming out of turn 5, right? When they got together, the Mustang lost the front end, so no headlights, and stopped facing traffic at the top of turn 5, which, if you guys can't see, you're climbing and cresting a hill. It is also where the prototypes break left to go past the slower cars because you have the second longest straight, second or third. Anyway, like a pretty good straight right there from turn 5 to turn 6. So he's out. He spins out. The car's dead. No headlights. It's quiet. I'm watching this happen in real time. So every second feels like 10 seconds. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, because the cars are going phew, and checking up and going by. And I'm like, why the heck is there not a yellow flag? And I'm tuned into that because my dad is a flag man at Road Atlanta. He was with me. He was not working this weekend, but the flag at turn 5 was there. They back up the flag for the IMSA race because I guess the cars are faster, so they pushed it down 100 or 200 feet or whatever. So the flag is literally at the car, aka kind of freaking pointless. You know what I mean? And I'm looking down at like turn 4 at the bottom of the hill, like, why are they not flagging? Why is this not going full course? It's going to be bad. And then lo and behold, Porsche goes through, and then there's a cluster of like the GT cars, or whatever. So the Porsche prototype goes through, and then the Audi comes out, or I'm sorry, the Acura comes out to pass the slower cars. Boom. It doesn't hit it head on, but grazes it, takes the car out of commission. He ends up kind of brushing the wall and busts both wheels up real bad and the side of the car real bad. So like, the Acura is out again after, a 10-hour like crusade, within a second and a half of clinching the win, and he's out because of it. And as he hits, the full course caution drops or whatever. But like, that is something to talk about. You know what I mean? Like, these things are happening. And a lot of times when you hear about the race, you'll be like, oh, Cadillac won, cool. So much more than Cadillac won. Because when that yellow dropped, it allowed Cadillac, who was in 3rd or 4th at the time, to cinch back up behind Porsche, ultimately pass them. You know what I mean? It brought everything together. There is so much happening, so much strategy in IMSA when you have a 10-hour race. And you also have team cars. And it's so cool to see that because, towards the end of the race, all the games come into play, man. Like, the Cadillacs will collect up or the Porsches will collect up, and they're working together, man. Like one will go around and then kind of slow down, let the other one get it, and then they're gone. And then they're working together to get whoever needs to get the victory. You know what I mean? Like there's so much strategy. It's just like a football game. You can watch a football game and be like, yay, go dogs, or else you can be like, holy crap, look at what they're doing here. It's 3rd and 1 and blah, blah, blah. But I don't understand it to that level. You know what I mean? And when you start to get a glimpse of what's really going on behind the scenes at these teams, like it starts to get real cool. And like I said, I feel a calling to like follow this stuff and bring people into it. And not, I don't even, covering the race is one thing, and I guess that needs to be done, but like, me, like I want to tell the stories, man. Like I want to get people to understand the psyche of these drivers and the different personalities and stuff, because I think that is so damn cool. And I think if you can start to tap into that and humanize it, it will bring people back into the sport. And if people are race fans, they're going to be car fans. You're not a race fan that drives a Tesla. You know what I mean? Like that, it doesn't like, just like guitarists don't listen to Justin Dan Bieber. You know what I mean? Like if you're into the stuff, like it's going to reflect in what you buy. It's going to change mass market trends in the automotive industry. See what, like I said, we're all so disengaged now that nobody gives a shit. Like we're just like, yeah, but how big's the screen, man? Like, can I connect my phone to it? Because really, my car is just my mobile office. No, the hell it's not. Your car is your car. Your car is like a moment waiting, and you're missing it because you're spaced out. Like, so I don't know. I don't
I'm
have a point. I'm just talking. So if you're waiting for a point, Ben Battles is like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah.
waiting for a point, I might think of it tomorrow. But right now, I feel like this impulse to like, yes, more of this, more of this.
I mean, the point is that someone, probably S3, needs to step up and just be the man when it comes to media for covering cool, amazing types of racing that people who are like minded need to be seeing instead of little boys and girls dancing on TikTok.
Yeah. Maybe if you guys are listening to this, do you want us to do that? Would it be cool? I mean, if you're listening to this, you know how S3 kind of does stuff. And I'm not saying we do it perfectly, because we don't do it perfectly. But the way that we do it is very, very, whatever, human, real. We're not going to be up there like two broadcasters on ESPN. We're going to be like telling stories of like what goes on. Maybe we would be up there like two buttoned up. I don't know. The thing is, there needs to be a blend of enthusiast and like news media, and people just need to share what's happening in the stories in relatable ways that create fans. Not a bunch of Monday morning press releases from the sponsors that talk about how good their driver did, because delete, I get those from Formula D, all but the delete. I don't care how good the X Falcon drive, delete. Like it doesn't matter to me. But like, I want to hear the stories. Like when
Yeah,
Chelsea Denova told that dude to fuck off. Like that
that's
was
funny.
amazing. Like that's the kind of stuff that makes you go, I like that dude, man. I knew I liked that guy.
Yeah. I mean, the fact is that, at least in my opinion, racing in the United States desperately needs a win. It has to start grabbing people's attention again, or else it is eventually, probably sooner rather than later, going to go away. Now,
You
whether because they start shutting down racetracks, or else people just lose interest and we get away from racing and the need for speed is just gone. I don't know what the final death of it will be, but unless you start getting people to start paying attention to this stuff, just like anything else, it's going to go away. And I'll tell you this, the quickest way to make or break an industry is the media's involvement. You want to see a perfect example? Look at the automotive aftermarket industry, okay? You want to know why it's having such a hard time right now? Because they ran all their freaking traditional media off, and now they're trying to rely on just digital media. And that'll take you a ways for certain companies, but the traditional companies who are maybe just really, really good at manufacturing and really, really good at making superchargers or injectors or whatever the hell it is, exhaust, if they're not great at the algorithm and the social media side of it, then it doesn't matter how good their products are, they end up dying off and diminishing. And we're seeing way too much of that in the industry right now. And of course, all these guys kind of like shunned the traditional media companies. So now all the traditional media companies have all either gone out of business or been bought out. They're freaking gone. It doesn't matter where they went. The fact is that they are freaking gone, and they're not paying attention to the automotive aftermarket anymore. And that industry is in turn dying. I mean, we're getting to the point right now where SEMA is right around the corner, and I've literally got people just being like, I mean, should we even go this year? And I'm like, man, I don't know. I haven't bought my freaking tickets either. And that's hard to say, but it's the freaking truth.
Well,
And the fact is, if you want to make an industry work well, if you want to make it to where everybody comes up together and everyone is successful together, then the media has to be directly freaking involved. The media has to be funded by the people who are trying to run the businesses, and the businesses need to be all be doing circular economy. That's how it used to
yeah.
work, and for some reason it doesn't anymore.
What?
You think look at ball sports. We're going to go back to that again, okay? Before ESPN came around, now granted, we've had a shit ton of inflation between 1979 and 2024, but the average, like Major League Baseball player back before ESPN started like really nationalizing baseball was like maybe a couple $100s a game. Okay, you get out there, you hit the game-winning home run, you pitch the perfect game, you get a couple $100. You know what the average Major League ball player makes now per year? Average. Just the guy who's batting like seventh in the lineup. $4.2 million a year. Okay. And that is not just because baseball is amazing or because he hits the ball farther. That's because the media made it more desirable. The
Yeah.
media, awesome job doing their freaking job because the industry allowed them to.
The
Sorry.
me. No,
Uh,
you're good. I just want to say it before I forget it. But like, the media needs to be there to tell the story. And when I say media, I don't mean social media. No offense, Battles, we love you. I mean like
None taken.
traditional. No, I mean like there's value in both, but I'm talking about traditional media because what you do is cool. But when it comes to these companies using social media to self promote, you can't tell your own story. That's lame. You need a third person to go, I'll tell you why this company is awesome. Because the dude that founded it drove a blank, 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 and pretty soon you're telling a story and they're like, dude, that's insane. I'm a fan of that company. But when they go on there every morning at 9 a.m. and self promote their little stupid post for the day, it
Yep.
doesn't work. Now, that's different from what you do because you're just your own media that's talking to the fans. But with what we do slash did when we were a print magazine, we told the stories of the industry. We told stories that inspired enthusiasts to buy parts and say, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna do it, man. I'm gonna do it right now while I can, and like, and that's the difference. And that's the problem that IMSA has right now is I don't want to say no one, but no one in our realm is telling their story. Therefore, when you hear it's coming to town, you go, that'd be cool. Well, I got this other thing to do. My kid has a birthday party. I'll just do that. Plus, the tickets are like, kind of expensive. And you don't go. And if you did go, it might change everything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man.
Dude, because of media companies like ESPN and Barstool Sports, every kid who plays on a T-ball team has a favorite professional baseball player. You and I, all three of us, are adults who are in the automotive industry. Name three IMSA drivers.
Yeah.
Not your favorite, just name three.
And like I was saying,
Can't do it either, and that's really sad.
these are the cars that we know and love. We should be fans. We should be fanatics just based on the fact. I have two 80s Porsches. Like, what's funny is I wasn't rooting for Porsche. When it comes down to it, I caught
Great.
this. I caught this about
Oh,
myself
cool.
because when it came down to it, I was sitting there going, come on, Acura, kick their ass. Come get him. And then he crashed, and I was like, no. And then Cadillac passed, and I was like, go, man, go. And he lost the headlights, and I'm just like, go, just go. I was so into it. That just goes to show you how far disconnected I've become with the new Porsche versus the old Porsche. But the fact of the matter is, there's there's connections there. You know what I mean? There's like a fan base developing. It should be so easy. It just needs somebody to tell the story.
I agree.
All right. Moving on. Are we moving on to Ben Battles weekend?
Go.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right. Tell us
sure.
about your adventure.
Okay, so this weekend was also the Chattanooga Motor Car Festival up here, about 2 hours north in Chattanooga. This is like the sixth or seventh year that this event has gone on, and primarily up until this year, the focus has been on two main areas. You have classic and vintage and antique concours level cars. We're talking hundreds of thousands, $1 million worth of cars. And then on the other side, you've got the focus on racing. In the early days of the Motor Car Festival, we would have the riverfront basically barricaded off, and cars would do a time trial style up one way, turn around, come back the other, and you would be timed on your run. And then over the years, some property was then developed and basically turned into a racetrack with some road course integrated with some city streets in it. And it was more of a proper race where they would have a certain class of cars going through. And we're talking cars from as early as the 19 teens all the way up until the latest 911 GT3 Cup cars and all that and everything in between. So there was something for everyone, no matter what era of racing or cars you were into, that there was going to be something for everyone. Well, like I said, this year was a little bit different because earlier this year, the property that had been developed with this portion of the racetrack on it was purchased by a development company. And they said, you can't do anything on here anymore, basically took over the land. And when Riverside, another event that was happening in Chattanooga, happened, some folks allegedly got onto the track and were making a scene, and the police were involved. And overall, it was just like a unanimous decision by everybody to not host any more events, not just the racing events, but also like our cars and coffee had to be moved. It was like this whole ordeal. So this year was the first year where there was truly no racing whatsoever. So it was kind of interesting to see like the crowd still be there for all of these concours cars. The ticket price also dropped dramatically. A few years ago, the ticket price for everything, and this got you into the racing as well, was like $90 or something like that. So it was a little high up, like you were saying about IMSA. Like it can be a little pricey. Like, oh, I might just stay home for that. But this year it was $20, and that got you into the concours, and you could walk around the auction house. That's another thing, was the Broad Arrow auctions were also there. So it got you like access to all these different places, and you got to walk right up to most of these cars that are like touching $1 million. And really, and the owners were all standing by their cars for most of the day. You could talk to them, and most everybody there is really, really cool. The organizers are really, really cool. In previous years, they had Mecum auctions. Mecum was here, I think, 2 years in a row, and they got kicked out. And Broad Arrow, which is owned by Haggerty, came in and kind of brought the clientele to an on par level with the auctions as well as the concours, because with Mecum, you've got everything from, I don't know, like a Firebird that's been sitting in somebody's backyard that they just got freshened up real quick, all the way up to $1 million cars. Whereas the Broad Arrow collection was like, it's all these very prestigious cars. This car has a history. This is a one-off example of this, and so it was like kind of tying everything together. It felt way more cohesive. So this year was like the most put together this show could possibly be. And Mike, you were saying earlier about like media attention and racetracks being shut down, and it kind of struck a chord with me a little bit because there was so much negative media attention around the whole ordeal with the racetrack earlier this year, and there was a lot of speculation as to why it shut down and who did it and all that. And it's just like, there's good media, there's good press, and then there's bad press and bad media. And it seems like the longer we go, the more I'm starting to see like even motorsports, like with privately owned racetracks, getting just hit time and time again from like the locals saying it's too loud, it's bringing in bad people, it's bringing in too many noisy cars. We don't want this kind of event happening. Like, who cares about the tax dollars and the tourism and the money that comes with it? It's a nuisance, and it's just like, man, that is so true. I mean, like, we're seeing it all across America. Last year I watched at least 5 drag strips get closed in 2023, and the trend is still continuing this year. And it's mostly the grassroots, which is like super hard to watch, because it's not owned by a huge entity like NHRA where they've got the funding to back certain tracks, because they have to have these tracks in order to have them on the calendar so they can run their big events and make that money, right? It's the mom and pops that have owned this. It's been handed down to them for years and years. I'm sorry I'm on a tangent here, but it's just like, man, yeah, racetrack shutting down is not a good thing. It's not good for anybody, and we don't
That
want to see that. And so our local track being shut down just kind of, it definitely put a bummer on it, but for the media folks like me, it just meant that we didn't have to hop on a golf cart every 5 minutes to go from the racetrack, which is way over here, all the way to downtown and back. You could focus more on, covering the event just downtown as a whole. So that was nice. But Friday, Saturday, and Sunday event was the Motor Car Festival. I ended up doing double dipping, actually triple dipping. I'll get to that in a second. Between that, the Broad Arrow auctions, and Classic Hondas on the Dragon was also this weekend. There was also a GTR event on the Dragon too at the same exact time. So I mean, like, everything around the southeast region right here has just been absolutely just car centered this whole weekend. It was really, really great. Classic Hondas on the Dragon had like I went to the car show early on Saturday morning. I got there about 8:30 in the morning or so, and there was probably 1,000 cars. I mean, it was the high school parking lot that they had out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, like, the Tail of the Dragon's also out in kind of the middle of nowhere, so it's like the closest place to middle of nowhere, but also the Tail of the Dragon that can accommodate for all these cars. There are about, I want to say, like 70, 75 Del Sols. That was their theme. They had a bunch of Del Sols lined up, all different flavors. Pick what you like. But anything from the modern day cars. They even had like NSXs out there. I saw the cleanest S2000 CR I've ever seen in my life. That thing's probably worth. That's a crazy thing. It's probably worth like $150,000. I mean, like, they're selling on Bring a Trailer for like 6 figures as is. This one was like garage kept, low miles, looked like it had never seen the rain. Like, oh, my Corvette's never seen the rain. This car's never seen the rain. It's perfect. I couldn't find a single flaw with that car. Anyway, well, I was up there at that event, and I got a text from the media girl at Broad Arrow Auctions, and she was like, "Hey, are you going to be at the Motorcar Festival today?" I was like, "Yeah, actually, I was planning on it. I'll be there around this time. Just kind of trying to wrap up what I was doing up at the Classic Hondas event." She's like, "Well, how far away are you?" I was like, I mean, I'm here, not there, so like 2 hours." And she was like, "Can you be here in 2 hours?" And I'm like, I mean, I guess. Yeah, sure. She's like, "Perfect. Okay, here's our shot list. Our photographer bailed last minute. We need somebody, and you were recommended by these people." And I was like, "Oh, that's great. Yeah, be happy to help." So I promptly said goodbye to everybody, all my friends that were up there at the Classic Hondas event, drive back down to the Broad Arrow event mid auction, and was able to capture some really, really incredible cars that were there. I mean, like one of my favorite ones at the auctions was this one-off Ford Thunderbird that was supercharged. So it was a newer generation Thunderbird, supercharged, had custom hood with hood vents. It had a custom exhaust. It was actually coming out in the bumper, like around the license plate around back. And it was made for I believe it was the Detroit Auto Show. It was a Detroit Auto Show car, a complete one off from Ford. And that thing for me was just like, man, that's incredible to see somebody going and buying it. Didn't have a title, had a bill of sale because it's
Yeah.
like a concept car,
Yeah.
but still ridiculously cool. Everything from that all the way up to like a brand new Ford GT Heritage Edition. It was like I don't remember what it was, but it was like a $1.5 million car. And it's just like seeing all these cars and getting up close with them and seeing all the people bidding. My old boss, Mr. Corky Coker, was in the room. He was loving all the action. It was great to see, just like everybody from town, and people were bidding online. I mean, have y'all ever been to like a Barrett Jackson event?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
No, I
no,
haven't been to
okay.
Barrett Jackson, but I've been to some of those auctions out there during Monterey Car Week, which is
Yeah,
right up my alley because a lot of times it's classic European stuff or whatever.
yes, absolutely. They had a Porsche Carrera RS that was like the rarest RS. It's like the rally.
Right.
Like it's got the lights on the front, it's got the rally lights on the hood. I don't remember what exactly it was, but it's like one of the ones on your wall there, Wooly. It's like that. But it was supposed to fetch like $3 million. Didn't sell. The buyer, the buyer just wasn't in the room.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be like that, and we talk about publicity and things like that. A lot of people after the fact that, like, on Sunday, after everything was said and done, I was talking to people that did and did not go to the event this weekend, and was like, oh, did you hear about the auction? And most of the time I got a, no, I didn't even know there was an auction in town. And it's just like, man, it's not your fault. It's not the people's fault, because if people knew about it, they would be there. And it was really mostly people that were at the Motorcar Festival attending it already that got a, hey, heads up, if you walk an eighth of a mile down the street to the convention center, you can see other cool cars in an air conditioned venue with the sun not beating down on you, and you get to like basically open the doors and do whatever. They were like very calm and chill about that as well. um but also, yeah, like the auctions that you get out at Monterey, I've also been to like the RM auctions that are out that way. And the auctioneer is very like, and I've got 500,000 here, do I have 5,050,000, like that. It was like that demeanor that I appreciated, because at Barrett Jackson's like, "Ah, blah, 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 blah," and you can't follow it, and it's too fast and people spend
Yeah.
too much money and it's done.
It's so weird
Whereas
because I don't care about perfection. I really don't like or have perfect, nice things. But there's a part of me that is super bougie, and I freaking love the energy of those kind of
yes,
affluent auctions, the European style, auctions and stuff. I've been going. I mean, dude, so to set the stage to show that I'm not just a snobby prick, like my mom worked for Delta my whole life. You know what I mean? So she's retired now, but we always flew for free growing up. And I was super spoiled. So I was going to Monterey Car Week before it was a week, when it was just, the race, the Concours, and like a couple auctions down there at the Monterey Pier since like the early 80s. I mean, since I was, literally, I memories back to 5 years old, just looking at the cars and the energy of the auction. And of course, I wasn't in the auction, but they would let you walk around the auction and stuff like that. And I have just always love that energy. Even if you have zero means or intent to buy, like, figure out how to finagle yourself into those auctions because it is the most inspiring stuff, man. You know what? Like, again, this is just, to continue to crap on the internet because that's what we love to do. You see these cars on your screen and you go, yeah, that's cool. But when you see these cars in person, the craftsmanship that went into these vintage sports cars, the mechanics, and there's something different. When you look at mechanical things, it is different than looking at electronic things. And the way that when you get up close and personal and you're looking through the vents of a car and looking at the levers on carbs and stuff like that, like, dude, that stuff just, man, it just hits in a totally different way. You get so drawn into that stuff, man.
Yeah, no, you absolutely do. And on that exact note, when I was at the Motor Car Festival on Sunday, the concourse was going on. So this was like full judging. All of the judges were out looking at each one of the cars, and they had each one of the sections kind of divvied off by what their particular branch was. So you had Jaguars over here, Ferraris over here, you had the Radwood section over here. And then there were just car sections that I was walking around with my dad, and he was asking me, like, why are you not filming this car? Because, I share a new video of a car every day on my social media platforms. And I just looked at him, I said, I can't share this because people aren't going to care. One of those great examples was they had a kit car section, not in the traditional sense. We're talking like coach built cars from like the 40s, 50s, like these things you don't see anymore. It's not necessarily a kit, but it wasn't a major manufacturer. It
Right.
wasn't somebody making 500, 1,000 of these kits like the Bradley conversions on Volkswagens in the 70s. These were cars that were made by hand, mostly by just skilled metal workers in their sheds. And they were coming up with these rebodied Thunderbirds, rebodied other cars, and they were immaculate, beautiful, like coach built to a T. And when you look at those cars closely and you see those individually adjustable carburetors, you see the multi-spoke wheels that have been trued by hand, you see the stitching in the seats that weaves intricately that only somebody that's like a perfect seamstress could have done back 60 plus years ago. It's like, man, you take a closer look at it and you really fall in love with that car. But if I go and I point my phone at it and start talking about it, people are gonna be like, what is that? And they're just gonna be like, that's old news. That's 60 years ago. It obviously wasn't a success because I've never seen one.
Yeah.
Swipe. Nobody cares. It's all about that instant consumable media these days. And it's like you have to
It's
have something catchy to get people's attention. I took a course a few years ago when I started doing all of this that really is still just resounds to me right at the front of my brain. And it's you only have 2 seconds to pitch an idea to somebody on the internet before you lose their attention. You get an extra 5 seconds to finish solidifying your idea. You have 15 seconds to pitch that idea and 30 seconds to bring it to a close. And then if you've got them at 30 seconds, you've got them for the rest of the video. And all of my metrics say exactly that. If somebody's watching a 20-minute long video I put out on YouTube, if they've watched the first 30 seconds of it, they're going to probably watch to the very end. It's crazy how that works. But
yeah.
yeah, it's all about
But see, that brings up
recognizability.
a whole different point, maybe worthy of a different podcast. But should media, let's just say journalists, that sounds better. Should an automotive journalist cater to their customer, or should the customer trust the wisdom of the automotive journalist? I mean, technically, the automotive journalist should be in a position where he or she has a lot of perspective and a lot of time and knowledge and network under their belt. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't like the fact that we're in an era where an algorithm or God forbid, the lowest common denominator of customer, free customer, mind you, on social media dictates what type of media is getting made. I, the point is, like, you pass on something great that interests you based on the wisdom and perspective that you've accumulated doing what you do, and you went, oh, well, freaking inbred over there ain't gonna like it, so I'm not gonna make it. You know what I mean? Like, that sucks. And we get to a point where you're like, well, I guess we just gotta go back to more Hoonigan burnout videos because that's what the monster drinking dudes like. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of sucks. You know, like I don't like the way, it's like I said earlier, I don't know if we were recording yet or not, but I'm stuck between like a Gen Z and a boomer. Like, you know, people give boomers hard times, but there's a lot of authenticity in that boomer generation. The greatest cars came from that boomer generation. Not appliances, but things that were crafted with passion and care and gumption. Like, there's a lot of things in this world that the Gen Z guys try and replicate and be part of that the boomers created. And they do it without showing, in my mind, the proper amount of respect to the boomer ideology or whatever. And part of that is, you know, back then the professionals told people what was up. Now we're in a world where the people feasting on the social media feed are kind of dictating the content that's being made. Because at the end of the day, you have to appease that algorithm. You have to make the content that's going to get you likes and shares. Whereas back in even our day with me and Mike and S3, and obviously before that, the magazines that we came up with, the automotive manufacturers and the aftermarket and the tire companies, they supported those voices. And it wasn't so they could get likes and shares so they could track back and see what their engagement was and track sales and have discount codes. It was, no, these voices know what's up. So we're going to put money in this magazine so that we create a consumer that's not a freaking idiot. You know, like that's what it was. And we've kind of strayed from that. And I do think that would be a good podcast. Write that down. But we don't have to get into all that crap right now, dude. But you know, I mean, what you were saying is dead ass accurate. And it's hard. You know, I mean, do you give the people what they want? Sure. But you also got to kind of speak your own. You know, I notice that all the time, dude. Take my 944. I love that car. And mine is a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to hide. I super glued some Bondo that was lifting yesterday. Just squirt, good. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a perfect car, but I love that car. I love the way that car drives and feels. I can't explain it. I mean, I could. It would take time. I love everything about it. I love the way the steering wheel feels and the pedals feel and the way you can feel the vibrations in your seat when you accelerate and decelerate. I love all that stuff. I love where the shifter's positioned, even compared to my 911. I can see where Porsche took the 911 and said, we're good here and here, but if we could redo this on the 911, we do it like this. Let's do it on the 944. You know what I mean? Like, that car's amazing, but it's not an internet hype car. It's not a social media hype car. It's not a 240SX. And no matter what I say or post about that car, people don't give a shit. But that's the people's problem. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, then don't care. I don't know what to tell you. I'm telling you, based on my cumulative knowledge about cars, which is a lot, that this is a cool car. Now, you take that for what it's worth. If you don't care, then you don't care. Don't go listen to somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's a hard position for media these days.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I tell people this all the time is that, like, I'm not going to showcase a car that I don't like. That's
Yeah.
the other thing, is that there's passion involved with it. You're talking about getting the right people in media to have the voice for company or profile or whatever it is that if you don't have that passion behind it, you're just going to sound like one of those generic robots at the company talking about it, reading a script, and not going anywhere, just sitting, spinning your gears. And people aren't gonna like what you're putting out. You know, people like to see somebody get excited because they're like, why is this person so excited about this thing. Like I could be talking about like one of those kit cars and be like, this is so cool and this and that, and maybe capture that attention of that little bit of the audience just because I'm so into it, because I really was into it. But then at the same time, it's like, oh no, you got to reel that back. There's a brand new Lamborghini sitting over here that people are gonna be like, oh, it's a V12 Lamborghini, and then you got to go and feature that, and then you got to be excited about that just as much as you were excited about this one-off handmade car. It is a tug of war. It is a internal mental tug of war. Just depending on how you look at it. I don't know. It's
Well,
weird, but you pretty much nailed it.
you're great at it because it's just, I don't know if this is by design or if it's just naturally how you are, but like your excitement comes out so well in your voice. And I can tell anybody that's listening that's seen your videos, like that is legit. You walk down the street at SEMA with this man and he sounds exactly like that. Like he's just, oh my gosh, did you see that? That is a 1992 Honda, whatever. Like that's just the way he is, man. And I'm not like that. I wish I was. I kind of wear my emotions on my face and in my voice. I just like, that sucks. Like I'm very just when something's cool, I think it's so cool that I can't even get the words out. And when something sucks, I cannot just let it go. I've got to tell you why, and I will trace it back 2 decades. But anyway, oh, and by the way, guys, so we're talking about Ben's social media. That is battles.digital on all the social media sites from YouTube to Instagram to TikTok. Yes, there's the fireworks.
There it is.
The climax. Um, anyway, Mike, tell us what sort of weird crap you
Yeah,
did
man.
this weekend that was absolutely not car
What
related.
in the world?
My weekend was pretty terrible compared to yours. Not that it was bad, it was just not cool. Like
Your
what you
wife's listening.
basically my wife ambushed me and was just like, "Hey, we planned a girl trip, but you have to go." So me and my buddy Richie, whose wife is also part of this little gang, I guess, got suckered into this trip. Our wives basically just went and bought us plane tickets to fly into LaGuardia Airport in New York, and then take a brisk little 1 hour drive out to Sleepy Hollow, New York. Which, okay, cool. You want to go get the fall stuff, the Halloween stuff. Which, by the way, I was under the impression this was supposed to be like a big time like Halloween trip. Like you're going to Sleepy Hollow, New York. There's going to be decorations and just Halloween in the air, and that's not true. The people who live there apparently did not get the memo. It was not as Halloweeny as I thought it was going to be at all, not even a little bit. My neighborhood kicks Sleepy Hollow's ass when it comes to Halloween decorations. All right, I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there right now. Reunion, which is right down the road from Road Atlanta, by the way, Reunion Country Club destroys Sleepy Hollow, kills it. It's not even close. All right, there was a cool little pumpkin thing that we went to. That was fun. And then the house that we rented was probably the spookiest thing of all because it was like a quarter mile away from Sing Sing prison, which is one of the most dangerous prisons in the whole country. They house just some of the worst criminals out there. But it was a really, really nice, like, gentrified neighborhood with just a horrible prison right down the road for some reason. Because in upstate New York, I guess they don't understand how much land they have. They just try to put everything right on top of each other for some dumbass reason. I don't know, man. Don't ask me. Anyway, we were right on the Hudson River. That was cool. It was a super old house. The house was built in like the 1800s, and it was just one of those massive, like they build them up style houses. So there's 3 stories that are actually livable, and the top story is really, really cool. You get up there and it's got like the big circular window. It's almost like a lookout tower type thing up top, and it's old. You can tell there's about 80 coats of paint on everything. There is no walking around that house quietly. Every board creaks. It's all loud as shit. And of course, there was a basement, or I guess you could call it a crawl space down below that the girls found and absolutely freaked out about because it scared the shit out of them. They did not know it was down there. Yeah, man, the girls we were with were kind of scaredy cats. Oh, my phone's dying. Hold on. Get out of here. Be quiet. All right, we're good now. Yeah, man, the girls that we were with were kind of just scaredy cats. They the first night we were there, the siren over at Sing Sing prison started going off, and I was like, oh God, what's that? And they were like, oh my God, what? And I was like, I think somebody escaped. Like, I think one of the inmates got out, and the girls start freaking out immediately because, of course, whenever someone escapes from prison, the first thing they want to do is just stay in the same neighborhood to go find the closest person to mess with, right? No, man, they're getting a car and they're getting the hell out of there, or going and jumping in the Hudson River and floating down. Dude, they're getting away from the place. It didn't matter. So we had to stay up and coddle. Anyway, my weekend was not cool compared to yours, is my point. That's all I got.
Yeah. Well, mine was super inspiring. I enjoyed the hell out of Petite. I am, let's go ahead and say right now, we're down. We're all, I don't know if you guys want to or not, but I'm going to do like your wife. We're going to the 24 hours of Daytona. I
Yeah,
wish I had the money to book us tickets. We're probably going to try and get a press car and drive down there. But we got to go. We got to start. That's the, it's like late January. What sucks about that is there's like a 95% chance it's the same weekend as my daughter's birthday, which is why I've only been once in the past 10 years when it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we got to figure that out. We got to get down there. Oh, that was the other thing I didn't tell you guys. So on Thursday, I my daughter's on fall break. She's 10. So on Thursday, I was kind of not really working hard. And I was like, well, let's go to the little local, park and play putt putt because I have a putt putt thing there. And we went there. And then I was like, well, I got to take my dad to go he's got an old air cooled 911 that has been getting worked on at a shop that's literally in like the Road Atlanta gates or whatever. and it was ready. So I was like, well, I got to go take my dad to go get his car. May as well go watch the night practice. I was like, do you want to go, daughter of mine? And she was like, okay. And I was like, really? Okay. And so she came and fell in love. Like, I can't explain it. She loved everything about it, from the racing to the food trucks to obviously the vendors and anything that had a cool stuffed animal or something. And I tried to foster that, like my friends at Sunheist, or the sunglasses company. Damn it, I've got a case here, but no glasses. But anyway, they were there. I didn't know they were going to be there, but they were just there as a vendor. And so I went up there and started talking to them and got her a pair of glasses. And so she's just having the best time. We went to like taco, what do they call it? Egg roll boy or something like that, and got her like these fancy ass egg rolls. She had the best time ever. And then she was like, can I go tomorrow? I was like, yeah, sure. So then it was Friday, and I had the Lexus hospitality pack, with all the good stuff. And so I got to take not only my dad, but my daughter. And by the way, this was like my dad's probably best memory of my daughter to date, including her being born, is when she became like a race fan. You know what I mean? Because we went to the Lexus thing, and of course they, dote over her, and there's breakfast, lunch, dinner, all sorts of little snacks in between. They gave her a hat, all the stuff, and so she had the best time at a race ever. So maybe the point, if I have one, is that we can get her to have her birthday in Daytona for the 24 hours. Because if you've
and
never
also,
seen anything like that, Ben, I don't know if you've ever been to that. It is, dude, it is like goosebump shit. You will be there in the middle of the night. Some people stay all night, some go home, to their hotel or Airbnb, but it's dark. It's late hours of the night, and these cars are just on the banks, and like I said, they're all lit up. You know what I mean? Like the team cars have, one will be green, one will be yellow, and they're lit up with neon. And there's like a Ferris wheel going, and you're like, now this is what the future was in my head when I was a kid. Finally, we nailed it. Like that's it, dude. It's so rad. We're going.
let's do it.
Cool. I mean,
Um,
I probably won't be able to,
why?
because I got a kid that's gonna be like newborn. I'm not gonna abandon my wife with a kid if
Abandon
it's
girl.
that.
That's not what we're asking you to do. Just a
Oh,
little while.
yeah, no, overnight probably can't no
Sounds
do
like a good
that.
first trip.
No,
When's the kid due?
last week of December, man. So it's gonna be a little tight.
Yeah, it's gonna not work.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, y'all, he's out. Let us
I've
know if you want to fill his spot. Um, But yes, whatever. I will FaceTime you if I can figure out how the technology works and show you what you're missing.
Yeah, here's what you're missing out on. Sucks to suck.
Get used to it. Nah, psych. Yeah. Congratulations and stuff. By the way, if you guys didn't know, he's having his firstborn. A boy, right?
Yeah.
In December?
Yes, it's a boy. December. Very excited.
Aw, snap.
Sweet.
So go support his efforts and give him a like and a follow and a share on battles.digital.
Cool. And go subscribe to S3 Magazine. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't really do that anymore, but you can get our free app.
Yeah, you can.
It's better than a subscription. It's free and instantaneous.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, I guess that'll about do it, right?
So that's all I got.
Yeah.
Who y'all voting for?
No.
No, we're not doing that.